Welcome to this video on building a course narrative and syllabus in active learning for transdisciplinary education. Let's start with the glossary of terms that you might find useful in this process. With a program, we're referring to an entire curriculum. With a course, to a single standalone teaching learning component within a program curriculum. With course learning objectives, we mean the higher level and overarching course learning objectives. Traditionally, these are framed from the perspective of the instructor, but in student-centered or active learning, these can be framed with focus on students. Overall, they refer to the broader objectives of the course. The course learning objectives can be further detailed in more specific learning outcomes. With a unit, we're referring to the constituent subcomponents of a course, each dealing with a particular topic or focus. Learning goals are the specific questions students will seek to address or specific subtopics students seek to learn about within a particular unit. Assessment is referring to measuring student performance and demonstrating student achievement. In active learning, students take an active role in shaping their own education. It's important that they have an overview of the logic of the course as well as its structure so that they can develop a sense of ownership over the learning process and navigate it actively. The course syllabus is a document that provides students and others with such an overview. It reflects the required competencies and takes us from overarching learning objectives to learning outcomes, and through the narrative of the course and the outline of the course. There are some key elements to include in a course syllabus. One is an introductory text with a course narrative. There's also an overview of learning objectives and outcomes, an overview of course units and a schedule, a breakdown of units or daily sessions outlining the focus of each session, and there's also practical and administrative information, for example, about credits, participation requirements, etc. There's also key information about assessments in the syllabus as well. And the course syllabus is often complemented by another document called a facilitator's guide. Facilitator's guide gives insight into the requirements for facilitators and key information set out by course developers. When we talk about the course narrative, it's something that conveys the central rationale and logic of the course. It's made explicit in the introduction to the course syllabus, in the course outline or flowchart, as well as in the facilitator's guide. It's also reflected, perhaps more implicitly, in the setup of the structure of the course, the setup at the level of course daily sessions as well. And it helps to get students, facilitators, and others on board. It allows them to appreciate the relevance of and need for the course. It helps them to understand the rationale underlying the course and encourages and facilitates more active involvement in the learning process. Additionally, it can help to inform guest lecturers or other stakeholders, observers, and resource persons about the course. The course narrative is also a very important opportunity to emphasize transdisciplinarity explicitly in the context of transdisciplinary education. So let's look a little bit closer at the details. So the narrative often depicts the tasks a transdisciplinarily trained professional working in an area related to your course will have to perform. We might ask questions, for example, of what tasks are we preparing our students for and why. It also indicates and explains the competencies students will need to develop the course in order to perform these tasks. These are reflected in the course learning objectives and translated into learning outcomes. We might ask then, what competencies do students need to develop? The narrative culminates in defining explicitly the overarching course learning objectives and learning outcomes. It provides a breakdown of the structure and the content of the course, and you might use questions such as, what are the key elements or components of the course? How do these contribute to meeting the learning outcomes? And how do they relate to or build upon one another in addressing these points? The course syllabus, its introduction, and its narrative describe the learning journey students will go through during the course, so it will function as a roadmap. It will demonstrate how the learning objectives and outcomes of the course will be met, and it can emphasize the use of active learning in the course. So if you look at a course overall, it's broken down into units or key elements, and then there's a breakdown of units into course daily sessions, each with its own sub-content and learning goals, which ultimately together lead to meeting the course outcomes and objectives. You can use a flowchart as a helpful tool, and a flowchart depicts the building blocks of the course as well as the roadmap towards the learning objectives and outcomes. It integrates and provides a visual representation of the building blocks, indicating competencies, including skills, knowledge, and content. It also highlights key activities, things like field visits and panel discussions, which, for example, reflect real-life learning activities outside or within the classroom. The flowchart can be included in the syllabus directly or indicated or reflected in a more narrative form. This is an example of a flowchart. So on one hand, you can see the course learning objective and the course learning outcomes, as well as the units. So that's the breakdown of components within that course and the corresponding skills and competencies students are expected to develop through the process of the course. Thank you for listening, and we invite you to view the other videos in this series.